May 13th, 2009. 4:02 p.m. Washington, D.C. A grainy crash test video plays on a government monitor. A 1972 Ford Pinto is rear-ended at 31 miles per hour. The fuel tank ruptures. Flames consume the vehicle in seconds. Inside a hearing room on Capitol Hill, lawmakers sit stone-faced. Outside, the Dow Jones Industrial Average hovers below 8,500, still reeling from the financial crisis. General Motors has already received billions in federal assistance. Chrysler is days away from filing for Chapter 11 on April 30th, 2009. Ford, barely alive, is clinging to liquidity secured years earlier. But this hearing isn't about 2009. It's about a memo written nearly 4 decades earlier. A memo that calculated the monetary value of human life. And it may represent the biggest mistake in Ford's history. Not just because of the deaths, not just because of the lawsuits, but because of what it revealed about corporate culture inside the glasshouse in Dearborn. To understand that mistake, you have to go back to September 9, 1970. The Ford Pinto launches. Gasoline prices are low. Compact imports from Japan are gaining traction. Ford needs a subcompact fast. Internal timelines are aggressive, 25 months from concept to production, nearly a year faster than industry norms. Lee Iacocca, then president of Ford, pushes hard. The mandate is clear. The Pinto must weigh under 2,000 pounds and cost under $2,000. Speed matters more than caution. Inside the development process, engineers identify a design vulnerability. The fuel tank is positioned behind the rear axle, with minimal protection from rear impacts. Crash tests show ruptures at relatively low speeds. Internal documents later made public during litigation reveal a cost-benefit analysis prepared by Ford engineers. The document, commonly referred to as the Pinto Memo, estimated that fixing the fuel tank design would cost roughly $11 per vehicle. The memo also calculated projected costs of burn deaths, injuries, and vehicle damage using federal safety valuation formulas. The total projected liability was estimated at $49.5 million. The cost of implementing the fix across 11 million vehicles was estimated at $137 million. The math was brutal. It was cheaper to settle lawsuits than to redesign the car. Ford would later dispute the interpretation of this memo, arguing it was mischaracterized and related to broader regulatory discussions. But the damage was done. Between 1971 and 1978, the Pinto became linked to numerous fiery crashes. Estimates vary, but investigations suggested dozens of fatalities potentially connected to fuel tank ruptures. In 1978, after mounting pressure, Ford recalled 1.5 million Pintos. But by then, the narrative was set. Corporate profit over human life. The Pinto wasn't just a product failure, it was a cultural exposure. Ford had placed cost control above safety, and that mindset would echo decades later. Step inside the glasshouse in the winter of 1984. The smell of coffee and printer ink fills the executive floor. The Pinto scandal has faded from headlines. The company is riding high again on trucks and SUVs. Henry Ford II is gone. A new generation of executives dominates. But the internal culture, cost first, margin driven, remains. Fast forward to the late 1990s. On December 4th, 1995, the Dow crosses 5,000. By January 14, 2000, it peaks at 11,722.98 during the dot-com bubble. Ford stock trades above $30 in 1999. Wall Street rewards scale. SUVs dominate American roads. The Ford Explorer becomes a bestseller. Then, in August 2000, another crisis explodes. Firestone tire failures linked to Ford Explorers result in fatal rollovers. On August 9, 2000, Ford announces the recall of 6.5 million Firestone tires. The smell of burning rubber returns, figuratively and literally. Lawsuits pile up. Public trust erodes. Internal tensions between Ford and Firestone escalate. The echoes of the Pinto are unmistakable. Cost pressures, aggressive timelines, risk calculations. And again, the company finds itself defending decisions made years earlier. By the early 2000s, Ford's global structure is bloated. Regional silos operate independently. Brand acquisitions, Jaguar, Land Rover, Volvo, consume capital. In 2001, Ford reports a $5.45 billion net loss. By 2006, the situation is dire enough that Bill Ford Jr. hires Alan Mulally as CEO on September 5, 2006. Mulally arrives from Boeing with a mandate to save the company. On December 5, 2006, he mortgages nearly every major Ford asset, including the Blue Oval logo, securing $23.5 billion in loans. It looks desperate. In hindsight, it's survival. Then comes the financial crisis. On October 9, 2007, the Dow peaks at 14,164.53. By September 15, 2008, Lehman Brothers collapses. Gasoline prices spike above $4 per gallon in mid-2008. Truck sales collapse, credit markets freeze. Ford posts a $14.7 billion net loss in 2008. The company burns through $21 billion in cash that year. And suddenly, the biggest mistake in Ford's history isn't just about a subcompact car from the 1970s. It's about structural overconfidence. The Pinto exposed a willingness to gamble on risk calculations. The Explorer crisis exposed quality control vulnerabilities. The truck dependency exposed financial fragility. But here's the smoking gun. In internal pre-crisis forecasts, Ford assumed U.S. auto sales would not fall below 13 million units annually. In 2009, they fell to 10.4 million. The models were wrong. The confidence was misplaced. The same cultural tendency that once reduced human life to a cost figure also assumed market conditions would remain stable. Hubris. It wasn't one engineering flaw, it was a pattern. Cost optimization over resilience. Speed over caution. Margin over redundancy. Psychologically, it reflects the God complex common in dominant corporations. When you've survived for a century, when you've built the assembly lines that powered a nation, you begin to believe collapse is impossible. That belief becomes your blind spot. By the time Ford testified before Congress on December 2, 2008, alongside Rick Wagoner of General Motors and Chrysler executives, the company was days from requesting a $9 billion line of credit. Unlike GM and Chrysler, Ford ultimately avoided bankruptcy. But survival came within inches. Had Mullally not mortgaged assets in 2006? Had credit markets remained frozen longer? Had sales dipped further? Ford could have followed GM into Chapter 11 on June 1, 2009. The biggest mistake in Ford's history wasn't a single defective fuel tank. It was the normalization of risk as a spreadsheet variable. The Pinto became a symbol because it was tangible, burned metal, lawsuits, headlines. But the deeper mistake was cultural. The belief that complex systems can be reduced to cost-benefit equations without consequence. Today, the River Rouge complex still produces trucks. The F-Series remains America's best-selling vehicle. Ford stock trades in a volatile range, reflecting modern market uncertainties. Alan Mulally retired on July 1, 2014, widely credited with saving the company. Lee Iacocca died on July 2, 2019. Henry Ford II's era is long past, but the lessons linger. Corporate America continues to calculate risk. It continues to assign dollar values to liability. The difference is transparency. The Pinto memo is now business school case study material. But ask yourself this: if a spreadsheet today showed a similar cost-benefit analysis, would it look different? Or would it simply be framed in more sophisticated language? The biggest mistake in Ford's history wasn't just technical, it was philosophical. It was the moment the company allowed profit logic to eclipse precaution. And that logic nearly resurfaced decades later when leverage and truck dependency pushed the company toward collapse in 2008. Factories survived. Executives retired with compensation packages. But the scars remain embedded in the corporate DNA. Because once you calculate the cost of human life, you can't unlearn the math. Next time, we uncover the corporate decision that almost erased another American icon.